There is something sacred about the silence of the earth, as if beneath our feet there were ancient veins pulsing stories that the surface forgot. For centuries, we have heard about mountains, seas, and stars, but rarely about what moves beneath us, because the underground is the territory of the invisible, and everything that is invisible, sooner or later, is called forbidden. Since the first civilizations, man has excavated the earth not only to survive, but to understand what heaven cannot explain. Under ruins and deserts, tunnels and secret chambers keep traces of a wisdom so ancient that science still hesitates to name it. Archaeologists find labyrinths that stretch for kilometers. Reports speak of sealed doors, lost maps, routes that were crossed out from the official records. Why? What exists in the bowels of the planet that needs to be hidden? Imagine an underground network spanning continents, connecting temples, pyramids, and sacred mountains. Invisible lines drawn with impossible precision for civilizations that supposedly they didn't know each other. Were they refugees, old labs, or spiritual corridors designed to protect something we still don't understand? The mystery is not just in the rocks, but in what they symbolize. Each tunnel is a metaphor for the human unconscious, an invitation to descend before ascend. Perhaps this is why so many traditions speak of the journey to the underworld as a rite of passage. We go down to lose the light, and thus discover what shines within. The same logic that moves the soul moves the earth. Both hide secrets that only the silence reveals. But something changed. In recent years, new archaeological discoveries have been rekindling questions that they seemed asleep. In different countries, researchers found sealed entrances, omitted maps, corridors that disappear under military surveillance systems. Some claim that these paths were drawn thousands of years ago, and that some of them are still used today in secret. Others suggest that these underground maps do not just belong to the history of Earth, but to the memory of humanity. If you feel like certain things are no coincidence, maybe this video is what you needed to hear. Because today, let's follow these trails. Between myth and fact, between fear and sacred. We will traverse tunnels that span ages, hidden cities that defy logic, and routes that seem to echo the same purpose, to guard something that cannot yet be revealed. And perhaps, at the end of this journey, we will realize that the true forbidden maps are not where hidden under the floor, but within us. There is a strange coherence between fear and faith. They both make us dig. When the world above threatens to collapse, human beings' oldest instinct is to descend, not just to protect the body but to keep the memory. Since the beginning of time, the earth has been a shelter and witness, and beneath its skin, civilization's entire trees left traces of a wisdom that was hidden for the sake of survival. In Turkey, a man was renovating his house when fate revealed a secret to him. When he knocked down a wall, he found a corridor that didn't end. Behind him, hand-hewn chambers, stairs, and halls. What seemed like a simple passage turned out to be an underground city, Derinkuyu, a work so complex that it challenged archaeologists themselves. 18 levels below ground, perfect ventilation, water wells, stables, and temples. Around 20,000 people could live there, hidden from the sun, invisible to the world. But the mystery isn't just in the engineering, it's in the intention. Why would a people hide at such depths? And more, how were they able to build such a structure with rudimentary tools, without written records, nor traces of light on the ceilings of the galleries? Some say Derinkuyu was a refuge from invasion, others, a sanctuary against cosmic catastrophes. But there are those who believe it was something more, an earth womb, built to preserve, not just bodies but souls. Down below, time seems suspended. Each tunnel echoes like a collective memory of when humanity had to collect within the planet, so as not to disappear from history. And this memory, perhaps, is what we call myth today. In different corners of the world, the same narrative is repeated with different names. In Peru, in the Andes Mountains, they talk about people who came down to earth to escape the fire from heaven. Among the natives of North America, they say that their ancestors lived in kingdoms underground until the world above was restored. In Asia, Tibetan monks mention Shambhala, a kingdom hidden beneath the mountains, where wisdom protects itself from chaos. And in all these stories, the descent is not just geographic, it is spiritual. It is the return to the primordial womb. the passage through the darkness that precedes all light. Jung would say that the underground is the symbol of the collective unconscious, the territory where the soul, humanity buries everything it fears and everything it needs to find again. For I that perhaps the hidden cities are not just traces of stone, but projections of one's own mind. What lies beneath our feet is the same as what sleeps beneath our memories, and digging the ground is, deep down, digging yourself. The fascinating thing is to notice how human history alternates cycles of construction and concealment. We build temples to show what we believe, and tunnels to hide what we fear. The surface is the stage of glory, the underground, the vault of mysteries, and from time to time, fate opens a crack and allows us to see what has been locked away. Each new archaeological discovery is a mirror that the earth holds up before us, asking, "Are you ready to remember?" Derinkuyu then stops being just a lost city. It becomes a metaphor for the soul that closes itself off to survive, but dreams of being rediscovered, because humanity does the same. Bury your pains, silence your truths, erase your own maps, and one day starts digging. When this happens, what we find is not just old stone, it is the echo of something that still pulses, waiting for the moment when the light once again passes through the earth. Soil. Perhaps past civilizations weren't just fleeing destruction. Maybe they were building preservation portals, a code left inside the earth, waiting for the right time to be read. What if these places are not just ruins, but signs? Messages carved in stone saying, "What has been forgotten can still be remembered." And you? What do you feel when you imagine that beneath every step there are sleeping worlds? Because if there are cities that sleep beneath the ground, maybe there are parts of us too waiting to be awakened. There are tunnels that were dug not to escape the world, but to encounter it from another mode. In certain ancient cultures, descending into darkness was not a sign of fear, it was a ritual, because at some point in history, humanity understood that the true light, it only reveals itself when everything external disappears. These subterranean places became portals of initiation, echo chambers between the body and the spirit, where silence was not the absence of sound, but the presence of the sacred. In the heart of the Peruvian Andes, the ancient temple of Chavin de Huantar holds one of the most enigmatic architectures ever built. Beneath the ground, a labyrinth of galleries and passages was carved with precision. None of these corridors were used for shelter or defense. They were designed to confuse the senses. Inside, the light is lost, the sound multiplies, and the water runs under your feet like a constant breath of the mountain. Archaeologists discovered that when sacred conch shells were blown, the sound ricocheted off the walls, turning into roars that resembled animal voices, or gods. Imagine the initiate, in complete darkness, hearing the world roar around him, believing stand before divinity itself. There, fear became transcendence. These tunnels were not just physical structures, they were instruments of consciousness. The sound, the darkness, the labyrinth, it was all part of a carefully crafted process, designed to bring about the collapse of rational control. It was the symbolic death of the ego, the return to primordial chaos, the same chaos of which the creation is born. Whoever went through that maze didn't come out the same, because the Chavin underground led not just to a temple, but to the meeting with yourself. When we study these spaces with the eyes of modern science, everything seems like an exaggeration, ritualistic. But if we look at them with our hearts, they tell us about something that psychology itself rediscovered millennia later. The unconscious is not an enemy, it is a sanctuary, and every sound echoing beneath the ancient stone was a call for the human being to remember the inner voice that the modern world has deafened. It's curious. The more archaeology advances, the more we discover that ancient civilizations understood the human mind with a depth that we are only now beginning to understand, recognize. They knew that transformation does not happen in the light of crowds, but in silence of the caves. Where no one sees us, the spirit learns to see everything. Perhaps this is why, in so many traditions, the underground is described as a womb, the place where the soul discards its old forms to be reborn in another frequency. The Chavin tunnels then stop being ruins and become spiritual technology, an engineering of perception, a laboratory where sound, space, and emotion come together to reprogram the being. What if this understanding is older than we think? What if these cultures had discovered ways to alter consciousness long before they? Do we have words to describe it? What we call archaeological mystery may just be a forgotten language, the language of the soul dialoguing with matter. The same principle is repeated in other places on the planet. Passages beneath Mexican pyramids where liquid mercury reflected light like a river stellar. Tunnels under Egyptian temples that echoed sounds capable of resonating in the body like vibrations, see uratives. Always the same message, expressed in different stone dialects. Descending is remembering. Remember what we were before fear, before forgetting. Today, when we look at these places, we feel something that we cannot explain. A silent magnetism, a deep recognition. Perhaps because these portals weren't just made for ancient priests. They were made for everyone who would one day seek to understand what exists beyond the visible. They remain there, waiting for someone to have the courage to cross again. If something inside you is awakening, stay until the end. The answer may be here, or in depths you haven't yet dared to visit. Because what ancient civilizations called initiation, we today call self-knowledge. And in some mysterious way, both remain the same path, that of someone who goes down into the dark to find the light again. There are tunnels that don't end. They get lost in directions that the maps don't record, as if they were crossing just continents, but dimensions. Across the planet, ruins, myths, and subterranean anomalies seem to form the same invisible design, a system that resists the passage of time and the censorship of history. Some call it a portal network, others, from the geological scar of the human soul. But whatever the name, the feeling is the same. Something pulses beneath the earth and the world seems determined not to listen. In Mexico, under the pyramids of Teotihuacan, archaeologists found passages sealed for almost 2,000 years. When the tunnel beneath the feathered serpent temple was opened, what appeared was not ruin but ritual. Walls covered in minerals that shine like stars. Jade objects, shells, and pyrite mirrors scattered across the floor, as if someone had attempted to recreate the cosmos beneath. The earth, and at the bottom of the chambers, rivers of liquid mercury, reflecting the torchlight like silver live. Why a civilization without modern technology would move tons of a toxic metal just to hide it under the ground? Official responses are fragile. Some talk about symbolism, others about power. But there is a hypothesis that goes further. Teotihuacan would not be just a city. It would be a map, a model of creation where each temple above the earth reflected a corridor below it, as if the sky and the underground were the same mirror. The idea is repeated at other ends of the world. In China, the Longyu Caves, discovered by chance in 1992, revealed halls immense, smooth walls and high ceilings, all carved from solid rock. More than 20 interconnected caves emptied with geometric precision and none inscription explaining its origin. Millions of cubic meters of stone removed, and absolute silence in the records historical. Not a symbol, not a legend, not a memory, as if the work had been deleted on purpose. And most intriguingly, many of these chambers remain partially flooded, preventing any full exploitation. What sleeps beneath those waters? What did someone want to hide there millennia ago? These coincidences, sealed tunnels, erased routes, silence, appear in every continent. In Ethiopia, passages connect monasteries carved into the rock. In India, underground corridors connect temples that are miles apart. In Europe, there are trails that cross borders and end under Templar fortresses. In all of them, the same pattern. Paths created for those who needed to walk without being seen, and perhaps for those who could not be forgotten. Some scholars call this forbidden archaeology, the set of discoveries that they never reach the public because they contradict accepted chronologies. When evidence of tunnels connecting regions that should never have contact emerges, excavations stop, access is sealed, and reports disappear. But nothing disappears completely. There is always a blurry photograph, a field diary, a memory told in voice low. It is these voices that build the other half of the story, the one that doesn't fit in the books, but resists between the lines. Imagine for a moment that these underground routes form a single system, an energetic skeleton that travels the planet, connecting sacred centers as if they were nerves of the same mind. Would it be a coincidence that almost all of the great pyramids, temples, and sacred mountains align with points on this invisible network? Or did ancient civilizations know something we have forgotten, a way of map the Earth's vital flow? If so, the tunnels were not just for hiding, but for conducting, and what they were carrying was perhaps consciousness. There is a curious detail. On almost all of these routes, the builders disappeared without explanation. It is as if they had fulfilled a purpose and then retreated into silence. Civilizations of silence, as some mystics call them, people who chose to leave just the echo of its passing, so that the sound of mystery would never cease. Perhaps the secret of these routes is not where they lead, but who dreamed them up. What we call forbidden maps may in fact be spiritual cartography, a reminder that there are paths that only reveal themselves when we learn to walk towards inside. And maybe that's why so many doors remain sealed, not because they hide something, but because we still don't know how to see what's on the other side. Some tunnels do not belong in archaeology. They belong to the memory of the soul. And these are the ones that cross all cultures, reappearing in stories so old that we no longer know whether they were born from earth or from dreams. Among them, none is more fascinating than that of Agartha, the subterranean kingdom described in Tibetan, Mongolian, and Hindu traditions, a hidden world, lit from within, where the primordial knowledge was never lost. According to ancient scriptures, Agartha is a vast spiritual empire located beneath the crust terrestrial, connected by secret passages that cross deserts, mountains, and oceans. There would live masters of light, guardians of universal wisdom, who keep the memory of disappeared civilizations. They call us kings of the world, not because of power, but because of conscience. They govern the invisible, discreetly guiding the cycles of humanity. In many versions, Agartha is accessed through hidden portals, in the glaciers of the Himalayas, in the caves of Antarctica, under the Andes, or even below the Sphinx in Egypt. Each culture points out a path, but they all agree on something. Whoever goes in there doesn't come back the same. During the 20th century, explorers, mystics, and scientists tried to decipher whether Agartha was a myth or a memory. Some reports speak of secret expeditions in search of these accesses. Others, from documents lost in military archives. And although science rejects such stories as legends, their symbolism is profound, too much to ignore. Agartha represents the center, the spiritual heart of the earth, the point where matter and consciousness meet. Descending into this realm is, symbolically, descending into one's own essence. There is also the tradition of Shambhala, which for Buddhism is the realm of pure enlightenment. It is said that when the world is about to be lost, the kings of Shambhala will emerge to restore balance. Interestingly, some texts claim that Shambhala and Agartha are the same place seen through different eyes. One describes the mystical aspect, the other, the physical aspect. Together, these stories form humanity's oldest spiritual map, a reminder that true paradise is not above, but below, in the depths of consciousness. Carl Jung would call this realm the archetype of the hidden center. The symbol of Agartha is, in the language of psychology, the same as the self, the point of balance where all parts of the psyche integrate. And that's why the myth has endured for millennia, because it speaks of an internal geography. The underground in this context is the unconscious, and the galleries are the paths that lead back to wholeness. Whoever goes through the darkness of the mind finds, in the center, the golden city of his own spirit. The same idea echoes in distant peoples. The Hopi, in the United States, speak of ancestors who lived in an underground world before emerging to the surface, guided by luminous beings. In Tibet, lamas describe caves where masters go into meditation and never more return, becoming part of the mountain. In Brazil, ancient Guarani legends mention the land without evil, a paradise hidden beneath the ground where time does not pass. It's as if each culture had received a piece of the same map, and perhaps together, they form the memory of a forgotten knowledge, that paradise and the underworld are faces of the same revelation. Interestingly, in almost all of these traditions, the path to the Earth's interior is guarded by trials, labyrinths, mountains, storms, The initiate needs to overcome the fear of darkness to deserve to see the light, and the prize is never gold or power, it's understanding. Agartha is the supreme symbol of silent wisdom, the certainty that what is real is not needs to be visible. Perhaps that is why so many seek these kingdoms and never find them, because the portal does not, it is in the ground, but in being. In a world that digs just to extract, we forget that we also dig to understand. The true forbidden map is that of the soul, where each tunnel leads to a memory asleep, and the mystery of Agartha, Shambhala, and all the inner realms continues to call us, not to escape reality, but to get down to where it begins. Because in the end, the path that connects heaven and earth was never above us. He was always inside. We have reached the deepest point of the journey. After crossing forgotten cities, stone rituals, and luminous myths, one remains. Silent question. What are we really looking for when we dig so deep? Maybe it was never gold or lost technology, but the memory of who we are, when everything that is superficial collapses. After all, every tunnel, every route, every hidden chamber seems to repeat the same message over and over again. Different languages tell. The truth is not above, it is within. The earth is like a mirror that reflects the invisible. It holds in its layers the history of our falls and rises. When archaeology reveals a new cave, the collective unconscious opens with it. It is as if humanity itself was remembering something that it had buried within itself. The forbidden maps we talk about so much may not be prohibitions imposed by kings or governments, but by the limits of our own perception. Not every door was locked by human hands. Some were sealed by their own souls, waiting for a time when we would be ready to understand them. Imagine the Earth seen from space, a blue planet, silent, spinning in the dark. From the outside it appears complete. Inside, a labyrinth of rivers, rocks, and caves, pulsing like invisible arteries. Now imagine the human being in the same way. We also spin, on the outside, a calm appearance. Inside, an entire universe. We are worlds inhabited by secret passages, memories, and symbols that intersect. And maybe when we explore Earth's underground, we're just trying to mapping the underground of the mind. Modern science measures distances and depths, but there is another way to measure, by emotion. When someone contemplates an ancient ruin, he feels the same way an initiate felt when he saw an ancient ruin. Descend into the tunnels of Chavin, or the chambers of Teotihuacan, a force that calls to inside. It is an impulse that cannot be explained by curiosity, but by longing, the longing for a truth that was once ours, and that we have forgotten. Discovering the past is, in essence, remembering the future. There is something deeply spiritual about the act of digging. Digging is deconstructing the obvious, removing layers of time until we find the essence again. Every piece of stone is a fragment of silence, and every silence contains a revelation. Ancient civilizations knew this. That's why they built underground temples, sound chambers, initiation labyrinths. Every hallway was a mirror for the spirit. Going down meant stripping off of beliefs, of pride, of haste. And, in the dark, the human being remembered, being a soul. Maybe that's why the greatest truths are always hidden. The sacred protects itself in the form of the impossible. Just as the seed needs the darkness of the earth to flourish, the spirit needs dive into silence to awaken. Earth is a school disguised as a planet, and the underground is its oldest room. There, among the sound of the stones and the murmur of the waters, rests the learning that no language can translate. Today, archaeologists call these places traces, but mystics call them memories, and the poets of echoes. Each word tries to name the same mystery, something that has been hidden but not forgotten. And this is where science and spirituality meet. Science seeks the how, the spirit seeks the why. Together, they form the invisible map that connects the visible to the eternal. Perhaps the underground routes are also paths of reconciliation, bridges between worlds, eras, and consciousnesses. We don't know for sure who built them, but we feel that they still belong to us. They remind us that humanity is older than the books say, and that the soul is wider than history admits. Because where man writes with stone, time writes with silence. And silence sometimes says more than 1,000 centuries of words. If all of this resonates within you, It is because there is a part that recognizes the call. You may not need to cross oceans or deserts to find these tunnels. Just close your eyes and go down within yourself. There is a sacred chamber waiting to be rediscovered, a space that does not age, where the voice of the world falls silent and the voice of the soul begins. That's where the real map opens up, not on paper, but in memory, not in coordinates, but in feelings. And when you find it, you will realize that the Derinkuyu tunnels, the Chavin chambers, and Agartha's roots are just metaphors of the same path, the path of the heart in direction to its origin. Because what the earth keeps in stone, the spirit keeps in dreams. And every dream is a map that points home. If this message touched something for you, subscribe and follow us. Your soul may be remembering the path. Now breathe. Imagine the distant sound of a drum echoing beneath the earth. It sets the beat of an ancient march, the march of all who once they sought meaning in the midst of silence. You are part of this journey, because the mystery is not a secret to be deciphered. It is a mirror to be inhabited. And when the mirror and the traveler become one, the map finally reveals itself. There is no north or south. There is no sky or underground. Just an infinite horizon where everything that was hidden breathes again. What if what we call depth is just the beginning of the sky that has not yet have we learned to see?